This is Tanoa Lynn Poirier, and I want to welcome you to Comm-Unity Conversations on WNN 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. This show is about you. I want to hear your trials and triumphs, challenges and victories, and how you overcome obstacles every day in our dynamic industry. All callers are welcome to join Community Conversations. This is where we'll discuss all things in common. We'll discuss managers, directors, vendors, and owners. Let's elevate the conversation. Raise the bar. Start here, now. Welcome in to Community Conversations with Tanoa. I'm your host, Tanoa Lynn Poirier, and I want to welcome you to Friday. Thank you to my team who did an amazing job. You know, this post-Irma adrenaline rush, and then kind of we're just getting to the place where we're able to relax. I think we're all a little tired. But I just also need to say that our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico need our continued prayers, focus, good vibes, contributions, and not to allow compassion fatigue to set in. They need us now more than ever. So their fellow Americans, also the U.S. Virgin Islands, please continue to pray and send positive vibes. They're needed. I want to just recap what we talked about last week. I was flying solo last week, and I gave 5 at 5, what I called 5 hot topics in the industry. And I think I also said they're 5 hot topics according to me. And since it's community conversations with Tanoa, then they were my 5 hot topics. And one was board member term limits. As you recall, recently Florida legislature term limits for directors of boards and community associations who serve 2-year terms. Not a fan, as I said, don't like it. The other was disaster preparedness and post-disaster recovery. Lots of things go into that for community association managers and boards and management companies. And I encourage you to go back and take a look at that. And I've noted in certain areas where you might be interested in just that subject. We also talked about how do we get younger people in the industry to get prepared for this responsibility. And as people begin to age out, burn out, and change careers, we need to bring more people on because they're not building fewer communities, are they? They're actually building more community associations. Despite what you may hear anecdotally, they're actually quite popular. We also talked about partnering with real estate professionals, realtors, in community associations so that when someone moves from a single-family home into a condominium, they are prepared and they understand what that sharing of ceilings, floors, and walls with other people means, and that you have to get permission to do just about everything. But in exchange for that, you have a lot of things taken care of for you. So all of your landscaping, your amenities, pools, tennis courts, etc., are taken care of, and you get to just enjoy your place. So there are trade-offs, but we have to make sure we partner with real estate agents to provide the best transition. And the last thing we talked about was if amenities are not used, what good are they? So if we have amenities in community associations that no one uses, can we repurpose them? Can we change them altogether? I mentioned that in aging communities or where people are aging in place, perhaps we turn what was once a fitness center into a center where there's an on-site clinic, or from tennis courts to pickleball, which is a less strenuous form, or just deep sixing the shuffleboard if nobody uses them, and make that something else altogether. And I encouraged you to consider the options, and they're endless. Let your imagination be your guide. So that was last week, and I hope you got something out of that. I encourage you to go back and take a look at it if there's something you missed that could be helpful to you. But today I have got such a treat. I want to introduce you to someone who is the manager whisperer. He is going to introduce himself, but he has talked me off the ledge more than once. He's a consultant. He owns a company called Association Bridge. It's perfectly named. He's a speaker, teacher, educator in the industry, and also a professional CAM, which is the highest level of that you can reach in a community association in the industry. And that designation is through an organization called Community Association Institute. So without further ado, please welcome Tom Willis to the show. Tom, welcome.
Hey, Tanoa, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. And I just want to thank you again for agreeing to appear on the show. Next time we're going to have you in person, but I'd have you any old way I could get you.
Well, I always appreciate talking with you. You're one of those people that gets it in our industry. So if you're going to give me the title, the Manager Whisperer, I got one for you.
Okay.
You are the Grand Imperial Poobah of positivity.
I love that. I think I'm going to get that printed on a business card. But you'll have to remind me because that is very fancy. I'm going to have to get some new earrings or something. I don't know. Thank you for that, kind sir. So one of the things that you teach is time management. And although ostensibly that may seem like a dry subject, it is not, because it's something with the proliferation of electronics and all of these distractions. It's getting harder and not easier. Though that technology was meant to make our lives easier, it's actually complicating things considerably. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That's why it's kind of funny. When I first started, I think the first time I presented it, because I present a lot of stuff, I always thought that my niche was going to be leadership training. And I still do a ton of that. But what was funny was the Washington chapter of the Community Associations Institute, the organization you mentioned.
Yes.
About 4 years ago, asked me to do a session on time management, and I thought the same thing you did. Who wants to hear about that? But then I realized, especially with my background, because I had been a contractor, started off that way. Was an on-site manager, wound up being executive for a management company, still consulting at the same time, trying to do as much teaching as I could, partially because I've made every mistake known to mankind. I think I've crashed and burned about 100 times. And
Me too.
I applaud one of the things you said. Not only do we have to attract people to our industry, but we got to keep them. And as I've shared things around the country, I've been shocked to find out that a lot of community association managers have really short shelf lives.
Yes.
In one market, I was told by a law firm that the typical lifespan of a community manager is about 8 months.
What? Wow.
Exactly. And this is a relationship business.
Yes.
How can clients feel comfortable if they're seeing a new face every 5 minutes? But I think as a whole, we don't necessarily train and fortify our managers to deal with the stuff that they're supposed to deal with. We teach them through CAI, we teach them the mechanics. We understand the basics of governance, of best practices, and those are really vital. But I think it's the life skills where we come up short. And I guess when I started putting the program together and realized the things that I had learned along the way, that I was fortunate to learn along the way, that enabled me to get a whole lot of stuff done because I always had too much to do. I studied Hiram Smith, David Allen, Brian Tracy has a lot of good stuff. Jim Fannon's 90-second rule has some awesome tools.
Yep.
And I also learned how attitude was a big part of it. I know you like to talk about that, how attitude is a big key. And Jeffrey Gitomer taught me a whole bunch of stuff. And I realized, there are so many mistakes that we make because they don't teach what we call time management in school. In fact, I don't even like the name time management. I wonder if we don't create pressure on ourselves when we even call it time management, because you and I know 60 seconds is 60 seconds. 24 hours is 24 hours. We don't manage time. Time is a constant, and we always feel crushed by it. Right. So what is it that we're really managing? And I realized, what we're managing is we're managing tasks. We're managing events. We're managing our attention. We're managing our intentions. And I think ultimately we're managing our energy. So when you put all that stuff together, I think we've got to change our mind around a little bit out of the get-go and realize that what we call time management is really the art of adding value to our time. Forget about managing time. We're going to keep using that term. but that's not what we're managing, and we got to realize that.
I
You know?
I couldn't agree more. And you said a couple of things. Fortifying our managers is a great term. I'm stealing that. Thank you very much. And
Yep.
the other thing you said that grabs me, and I want you to elaborate on it. If you would first just help the listeners and the viewers, tell us a little bit more about Association Bridge, and then if you would follow that up with energy management and what the difference is, and how that energy management makes all the difference.
Got it. So you tricked me into talking about myself. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I formed Association Bridge because the management company I work for in my day job is a large company in the Washington, D.C. area. And I had been doing a lot of teaching for Reston Association, which is sort of an iconic early on planned community association. And it's mostly made up of smaller associations. And the stuff that I heard made me realize the standard things we do in professional management that I take for granted. A lot of community association volunteers just didn't have access to that if they were in a small venue, if they were self-managed or were using financial only management. And so I thought, well, you know what? I don't want to give people fish. I want to teach them how to fish. And that's why I love to teach through CAI. It's always a lot of fun to share the stuff that I picked up through the years and help people to avoid those mistakes that I make. Mm-hmm. And I formed Association Bridge to try to give those small associations the tools that I took for granted for the larger associations. And one thing led to another, and it wound up that I was doing consulting even for some contracting firms, doing seminars for other management companies outside of my market or friendly competitors. I wound up being engaged, and when it came to time management, even I wound up getting an engagement to do one-on-one mentoring, an association like their general manager, but they saw he was a bit of a train wreck. So I got to do one-on-one mentoring with him. And that sort of leads to the speaking gig and all that sort of stuff. And one thing leads to another. In the course of doing really fun stuff, I love doing operational audits for community associations. So interesting that the one thing clients don't do, community associations don't do, is plan anything. They adopt their budget and think they made their plan, which is crazy.
Right.
So much more than bricks, right? So I always encourage clients as soon as possible after an annual meeting when a new board is put together to have a planning session. And if all you do is go, what do we want to talk about at the next annual meeting? One of the topics we may touch on, which is reverse engineering, identify them up front and work towards those goals. And you'd think I invented the wheel. So Association Bridge is the way to share some of those ideas. And I'm determined, such as you, I love your raise the bar theme. I think what we do is important. I think when we serve our homeowner clients, and I love the volunteers, at least you and I, we get paid for this stuff. The volunteers do it for free.
Yes.
When all of us, you, me, consultants, management companies, auditing firms, business partners, and the community association volunteer leaders, when we choose to do our jobs really well, we make a positive impact on the quality of life of every man, woman, and child of our communities.
Amen, brother.
Hey, and the only person that can take that reality away from us is us. And because of the negative spirit out there, we burn ourselves out all the time. So I was determined to make that different. I'm determined to help community association volunteers and the professionals that serve them to do more than just survive. I want us to thrive because I've seen it. It can happen, and it's a beautiful thing. So that's what Association Bridge does.
Excellent.
And that was energetic, so that's a nice...
That was energetic. Indeed.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we talk about time management and it sounds like a dry topic, but the thing that we miss a lot of times is we can't ignore the emotional impact on our time management.
Right.
We think we don't have time for things, but the truth of the matter is it's a feeling. We feel stressed.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. So one of the topics that we share a lot of times, because it's easy to miss, is identifying the difference between a time investment and a time expense.
Yes.
Now I know you can't relate to this because you're so young, but when you get old like me, you realize.
Okay, your money's in the mail.
Ka-ching. So, speaking of money, that is not the most valuable currency you have. The time, that is the thing you never get back. So time is the most important currency you have. So a
Sure.
time investment is something you do now that pays off in getting you more time later on. And we, from day to day, because things move so fast, miss these opportunities all the time.
Right.
Here's an example. We have a meeting with somebody, say it's a contractor. We shake hands, we agree things are going to happen a certain way. This is somebody who we've worked with before, good person, we know it's going to be good. We're rushing, we're going to the next thing. We know what we really ought to do is a quick email to confirm what those understandings are. We don't do it. Things go kerflooey, everybody gets upset, memories get short, there's no record of what we agreed to. And now instead of spending 5 minutes to send that email, we are now answering emails to every board member that's upset about this thing. We're going back and forth in an argument. We didn't realize that 5 minutes would have been an investment. And it wasn't because we thought we didn't have the time. It was because we felt we didn't have the time.
Wow, that's good.
Right?
Yes.
When you're rushed, when do you make your best decisions? When you're stressed or when you're in a quiet moment? So here's another one. I watch managers not manage their energy because they don't have a plan. I noticed that because I've interviewed a bazillion on-site and portfolio managers through the years. And one of the first things I always say is, tell me what do you know what you're going to do when you walk into the day, right? When you walk into the office, how do you know what you're going to do that day? And 80% of the time, the answer is, I check my email, I check my voicemail, and then I go from there. And I said, okay, well, that's great, because you got to know what happened, the night before or whatever. But walking into that, what was your plan? Well, I check my voicemail and my email, and then I go from there. And I said, right, but you probably knew that you had goals for the week or something. Did you have a business plan?
No.
And they say, well, I check my email. My God.
Yeah.
So many people in our business are 100% reactive.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Right. So what is the solution to that? All the successful stuff I've read and the stuff that's worked for me is never, ever start a day without a plan. And not just any plan, a prioritized plan. In your quiet moments, think about what you've got. Look at your annual calendars, your weekly tasks, whatever's going on. Do a brain dump, have a collection place for all that stuff, and prioritize it. Now, we all know within the first 5 minutes, it might blow up. But you always have something to come back to. You've recognized in those quiet moments when you're making good decisions what's important. And because we can do that, we are managing our emotions a little better. We're making better decisions, and we have something to come back to. Because if you're just jumbling your stuff and you're keeping it all in your head, you're using a ton of emotional energy from minute to minute, even to the extent where you finish one thing and then you spend X number of minutes trying to figure out what to do next. That really takes a toll, and you don't realize it until you start working from a list and you start realizing you're more relaxed, you're making better decisions, and you're more efficient.
And
So
you're in the. I'm sorry to interrupt. The stress actually is counterproductive because you have not even sort of a broad outline of what you wanted to accomplish that day. Now, there's just the regular list of inspecting the physical plant, going over the plans for the day or the week with your staff. When you meet for meet board members, I like standing meetings with the association representative, so they're in the loop all the time, and I provide weekly updates for those communities who prefer them. But not even having an outline of what you want to accomplish, because typically you show up and nothing you planned is happening that day because there's a leak or there's a dog bite or there's some kind of kerfuffle going on. And so you have to shift gears. But people who are not, who can operate well under stress are paralyzed sometimes by the fact that, one, they don't have a plan. And so their default is always, I don't know, I'll just see what happens when I get there. That's very stressful and time sucking, if you will excuse the term, right? Because you're just okay, I don't know, I'll go here and see what happens. It's far less efficient, which makes you more stressful, which kind of self-fulfills a prophecy about not having enough time.
Correct, and it takes a lot of discipline to turn that negative cycle into a positive cycle.
Yes,
you're exactly right. But there's a key point to what we're saying, and it ties back into what you were saying before about the speed of life and the intensity of communications. There's a real lack of priority in the world as a whole, because we've all been sold this bill of goods that you can have everything and you can have it right away. And so we feel a lot of pressure. The inputs we get are negatives, not because it's bad, but because we're problem solvers, which means people call us with problems and we're supposed to solve them.
Right.
That can feel negative. But the other part of it is we have to recognize that important things are rarely urgent, and the truth of the matter is urgencies are rarely important. So when they come in, you've got to manage those emotions to try to figure out if this thing that just hit you with, or that email that the person that emails you 5 minutes after the first one saying you haven't answered my email, what's going on? Finding ways to diffuse those situations and set expectations so that you're able to separate that which is important from that which is just urgent. And sometimes we got to recognize in communication, because that's such a big part of what we do, that part of the art of this is recognizing that people want two things. They want acknowledgement and they want solutions. But people tend to assume anybody in customer service just stinks at it. And it's true. There's some companies we could both mention that are horrible at customer service.
Yes.
Oddly enough, one a major communications company that can't communicate with anybody, right? So
yes.
What do people do in that area, in that scenario, when they think you stink, even though they don't know you, and they want to get attention because they're not sure you're going to hear it? They holler, they yell, they scream, and sometimes they're screaming on email. So when we receive those things, we assume it's urgent. But maybe the first thing to do is to acknowledge the emotion, recognize that it's important to this person, and then break down what the best way to get to the solution.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, we make this mistake out of stress. Here's another stressor, right?
Right.
You get the email from that person, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
This is the homeowner that refuses to serve on the board. They just love the snipe from the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
They get a 20-page budget, and they miss the bigger picture, but they go crazy, reaming everybody at a public meeting about a slight typo on page 7.
Yes.
Right?
You know, you have one too?
Only one. So we get the email from that person, and immediately we get torqued up because we know whatever the answer is, it's got to be right, because if it's not right, we're doomed. And we're already busy, right?
Yes.
We make the assumption that this person wants this thing right away, but we know we can't get to it. But we're a good time manager. So what do? You know what? I can't get to it today, but it's reasonable to respond to email in a day. So I'm going to put it on my list to talk to this person tomorrow. Great. I'll have time to think about it. I'll give them a great response. Well, then, like you said, the pipe bursts, the dog bites, whatever. For whatever reason, we don't get to it the next day. We're now into the third day. They have gotten zero response from us because we put all our pressure on ourselves.
Right.
What have we failed to do? Acknowledge.
Right. Yes.
Managing our time blocking, managing time to recognize that an investment to answer our email, even if the answer is, got your email, thanks so much, and then negotiate.
Right.
Would it be okay if I got back to you on this on Friday? This looks like something I want to make sure I get exactly right. What I've found since I started doing that is most of the time, even the people that seem to be yelling at me go, oh, sure, that's fine. Thanks for getting back to me so quickly.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes,
we
absolutely.
fail to negotiate.
Yes.
And here's the beauty in this thing. They may come back and say, no, I need it right away. Okay, I now know I have an urgency and a priority. Not a problem. I'll scramble things around to get it done. But if I can negotiate and I'm thinking through carefully and I'm calm, right, I'm not too stressed, I ask if I can get back to him Friday, knowing that I'm going to write it down to get it done Wednesday. Because if all heck breaks loose, I'll still get it done on Thursday. And if I get it done on Thursday and they're waiting for it on Friday, everybody's really happy because I've actually exceeded expectations. So you turn that negative thing, that's one of those ways that you start to turn the negative cycles into positives.
So are you listening, audience? That is a terrific tip. Everybody wants to be acknowledged and validated, and you will save yourself time, aggravation, energy, and stress if you just invest the time, as we like to say, and make that email or return that phone call and say, listen, and even if you don't have the answer, I don't have the answer. This is a new one on me, or it looks like it's going to take a little time of research. Can I get back to you? And this is not just community association management. That goes for any industry where you're dealing with people. And that's an incredible tip. We've got in a couple of minutes, can you just, there's something here, it's your number one tip, and it's about, this is your life. So I wrote a blog that get off the hamster wheel, but we have synergy in that, this is your life. Get off the treadmill or get off the, what do you say? Yeah, treadmill and live it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason why, and it's really been touching to me, since this has sort of become a signature thing I do. It's been everything from a keynote speech to management company workshops. I taught it to a law firm. It's been a lot of different venues. And what's been interesting to me is the emotional response that we get, because the first part of the program is generally business, and then I finish it up to do exactly what we say. That the only reason this stuff works is these aren't business lessons. These are life lessons.
These are life lessons. Yep.
It's so easy for life to just zoom past you and you miss it. You can get so caught up in the urgencies, you never get to those important things.
Right.
And as a result, if we start applying some of these principles, we start making quiet time for ourselves, investing time to take care of ourselves. One of the things that when we talked before you thought was a cool idea was that I always call attitude the secret weapon of time management. And when you think about it, when you're motivated, when you're focused, when you're doing really well, everything happens.
Yes.
But the way the world works, that attitude has to be built.
Yep.
And so as a result, you've got to invest the time in yourself to make yourself healthy, which turns things around. And you got to slow. That's how you slow down in order to speed up.
Perfect.
And that is a life lesson.
It is a life lesson. And also, be good to yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy. I can't believe how quickly this time is gone. Promise me that you'll try and come here so that I can introduce you in person to our audience. It has been a thrill for me, and I know everyone's got something out of it. And I'm probably going to see you in Washington in spring, and we'll have a coffee, because Tom and I are social media friends and colleagues. We share an industry, but we haven't actually met in person. Okay?
Nope.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Be good to somebody. Be a blessing today. I'll see you next time with Sir James, who is superhero. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Bye. You have been listening to Community Conversations with Tanoa Lynn Poirier. It is my honor to host this program, and I appreciate you listening. We have an exciting show planned for you next week, so mark your calendars and join me every Friday at 5 p.m. on WNN 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. We look forward to hearing from you, our listeners. It's all about learning, sharing, and teaching. We're all in this together. Until next time, be a blessing to someone and endeavor to persevere.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff,